Welcome to All Scale Slot Cars. I'm Dennis, and since the 1970s through the 80s and into the 90s, I have been a huge fan of NASCAR racing, NASCAR stock car racing, and basically all kinds of stock car racing in general. Go to the local tracks and watch the stock cars beating and banging, and I just loved it. I always loved it. And so when I got back into slot cars, I was looking for a nice experience with stock cars, and Carrera really filled the gap. They put out some beautiful cars throughout the years, just beautiful details, and they run very nicely. And I just absolutely love these cars. And I now, since I have a Carrera digital track, I wanted to have that nice stock car experience, beating and banging and really enjoying it. Have people just mimicking like a real NASCAR race where it's no holes barred and just a real event of digital racing. And these cars are so fantastically done that I don't want these to be the cars involved when it comes to that. These are all Carrera, and they've done such a nice job that I don't want to race them in that environment. Now, I'd love to drive them around the track. They're very durable, and I even have my grandsons, if they choose to drive one or some of these cars, they can have at it and just have a great time driving them around the track. I drive them around the track. It's oiling day today, and so that's why everybody's out here. I set up a temporary analog track here so we can just get some test laps in, make sure everybody works. I do this from time to time with all my cars. It's their turn today. And so, yeah, I don't want to expose them to that digital environment of beating and banging and really knocking them around. Even though they're durable, there's a difference. If you understand what I'm talking about, if you have slot cars, they're meant to be enjoyed, but then you don't want to have like a bunch of just, a heap of junk lying at the end of the day. You want to keep them in pretty decent shape, and they all go back into their cases after everything is done. So I don't want to have like a real messed up set of cars, but I still want to enjoy them. So I take them around for laps, and anybody can enjoy them. But when it comes to that hardcore racing, that digital racing, I needed something, and I wanted to have a series of at least, a 6-car set that can set up a nice digital race where I wouldn't feel bad if things got heated and cars banged around each other and maybe little parts broke off or something. I would be fine with that. And I found just the ticket here in this Scalextric series of cars. Now, this came out in about 2020, I believe, somewhere in that era, 19, 20, 21, somewhere in there. And I've always seen them on video and in pictures. And to me, they looked a little, the word I use is plasticky. I don't know if that's a word, but that's just the word, the term that I use for them. They just look like maybe they're just plasticky. I can't explain it. They're not as good a quality as what I've witnessed firsthand with the Carrera cars and what I've grown to love with them. Now, they're both entry-level cars. I mean, for slot cars, they're considered entry-level where they're not the enthusiast kind of cars. But I don't know. I think the Carrera cars are just beautiful, just beautiful. And they're actually cheaper in price than most Scalextric cars, which is fantastic. And so I'm a big proponent of Carrera, as you could probably tell if you've been a subscriber here. But I don't want to blast Scalextric. They have some beautiful cars too. I just wasn't sure about these. I said, well, these would be the perfect ticket because they're so inexpensive. I got that for less than 30 US dollars. All of these for less than 30 US dollars. And they're still available today for less than $30, which is a fantastic bargain because they are good cars. And I'm going to drive this one around the track here in a minute and show you. They run very nicely. There's nothing wrong with it. And I bought this car first just to see what was going on firsthand. I wanted to be able to tell if this was actually for me or not. And so I bought this car, and it looks really nice in person. It looks very nice, a nice finish to it, and pretty nicely detailed. And I really like it. I really like it. And it's also, to a great advantage, it's got the DPR door. So it is currently in analog, but you have the ability to upgrade to Scalextric or Carrera Digital and have at it at that point. So when I got this car in and I drove it around, I said, this is not bad. This is good. And this is exactly what I'm looking for. Now, if we beat and bang and that spoiler breaks off or something, and that's okay. That's okay. That's what it's going to be meant for. And I even said there's a series of about 8 of them, I believe. And so if I can get 6 of those 8 and equip them with digital chips and have a nice series, these could be my stock cars, my stock car series, and I'd be all set. Now these 6 are still available, pretty widely available, and very inexpensively. I think there's at least 2 more in the series, and they're set cars, and they feature a well-known driver who has since been deceased, and it's 2 versions of his car throughout time. It was when he drove the Wrangler car and the Goodwrench car, and they alter the numbers a little bit and change the sponsorship. So there's no licensing involved here. The I can't talk this one. Sponsorships have been tweaked or changed in all of these cases, but that's fine with me. And I said, I'm going to go for it, and this is going to be my series. And I said, even if I don't like the finishes on these cars or the way they look, even though as much as I like that one, I said, well, I'm taking a chance getting more. And I got 2 at a time, and I really like them. And I said, if I don't like them, I can always paint them. I can always paint them to my own personal taste. I loved the Winston Cup cars, the Grand National cars in the 70s and 80s, and they're not really represented in lot cars. Even in HO, they don't really. Tyco went into a lot of great detail in their NASCAR cars back in the 80s and 90s, but there's really no representation of cars in the 70s, of NASCAR in the 70s, and I love that era. There's so many beautiful cars. The Cale Yarborough, the Busch beer car from Junior Johnson, and when Junior Johnson also had Darrell Waltrip and Neil Bonnet in the Budweiser cars, and Terry Labonte in the Piedmont car. Oh my gosh, Richard Petty, we get all the versions of. We're very fortunate we get all Richard Petty out of our systems, because that's been made over and over again, but that's basically the only one. But there's so many. There's the Darrell Waltrip when he had that Dyguard Gatorade, that green and white car, Donnie Allison and the Hawaiian Tropic car, Bobby Allison, and so many fantastic cars. Oh my gosh, he had that Coca-Cola car, and my favorite car of all time, the Wood Brothers Purolator Mercury with David Pearson, and then later my favorite driver of all time, Neil Bonnet, driving in that car. That was wonderful, and that's never really been made. And so I said, I can make those cars and just go to town on them if I want. I'm probably not going to be that great at it, but you never know. You get a little practice, and maybe you become better at it as you go. And oh my gosh, I would love to have a Neil Bonnet Purolator Mercury, and or Tim Richmond's Folgers car. Oh my gosh, Bobby Allison's Miller American or Miller High Life. Oh, I can't even, it's all flooding back to me now, and I'm getting overwhelmed because, I would love to have that. So I said, I can at least have that in my series. I can change these around. But when they came, I have this dilemma because I kind of like these. You have this number 46. Now there's 2 manufacturers here, so to speak. There's the Ford Thunderbird and the Chevrolet Monte Carlo. There's this 46 Alama. Again, these are all fantasy liveries. This 93 Momentum, and I believe this is supposed to be a a takeoff on a Junior Johnson car, maybe when Waltrip was driving it. The 69 Velocity Chevrolet Monte Carlo, and it's kind of like the Skull Bandit, Harrogate Skull Bandit. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to mimic because it's somewhat like it. Yeah, I would say Skull Bandit. This one, the 22 car, and this is the Optimum car, and I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to be standing for. And this one, it says Gasoline as the sponsorship, which is obviously Havoline. And when I believe Mark Martin drove this as the 6, there were various drivers, Morgan Shepherd, even Neil Bonnet had one in the 75 for Ramick. So that's been a staple. Ron Bouchard. So that's obvious what that car stands for, and it's just funny how they call it Gasoline. And then last but not least, which was the first one I got, which is very, very similar to the Bill Elliott car that just dominated at a certain point in the early 80s or mid 80s. He was winning everything in sight in his Coors Ford Thunderbird, and that is a great representation of that. And so I love that car. So I don't think I'm going to be painting any of these. And the good thing is they're so inexpensive. There's always the option to pick up a few more and then paint them up and then have a nice series. And if I do paint them up and if it comes out nice, I won't be racing those. So those will go like those Carrera cars where you just take them around the track and just enjoy them for what they are and just have fun with them. But these will be the base 6 of the stock car series. And if we have 4 people over, they could have their choice of the 4 that they want to take and just have at it. And I won't be afraid to let them rip. And the great thing about, like I mentioned, they're all DPR, digital plug ready, which I have 6 digital plugs from other cars that I can transfer in here. If that doesn't become like a regular thing here, if it becomes a once every year event when, I get some people over, some family come over for a holiday or whatever, and get 6 people that want to race, I'll make sure I'm equipping 6 digital chips in these cars. And the rest of the time, I'll take the chips out and put them back in the cars that they're in now. And that's just an option to play with. Or sometimes, digital chips are nice to the DPR doors. They're really nice, but sometimes it's just a pain in the neck. It's like you just want to pick up a car and go, and you don't want to have to take this, open this up, open it up the other door and the other car you're taking the chip out of, pulling the thing out and pulling the thing out of the other thing, and then putting that thing in here and plugging in, and then tightening this up, and then closing up that DPR door in the other car, and then checking to make sure it works, and then putting the other car back to where you got it. It's just, it's more involved than just picking up a car, even though it doesn't take that long. Everything I just described there probably takes less than 5 or 10 minutes maybe. But it's just a little bit of a pain when you just want to pick up a car, and you have to kind of weigh that out with buying more digital chips, which the Carson chips are not cheap. So that kind of would defeat the purpose of getting the set of cars, and that's something to keep in mind too. If you're going to buy digital chips, then you may want to just get more Carrera cars. You can get them for about $50 for a digital car when they do come out with, digital stock cars. And they do from time to time. They've done it for like 20 years now. They've come out with various digital cars. They seem like every year or so, there's 1 or 2 more that they release. So if you don't want to go back through the history of all this and try to get a discontinued car that you're going to pay premium prices for on secondhand markets, you want to buy it firsthand, you can wait, and there's probably more that they're going to be releasing, I would think, hopefully. But if not, you could still find them relatively not too much over that mark of the new cars that come out each year. So, but in the meantime, this is a great series, and I'm just enjoying getting these ready. I'm going to put the digital chips in here, and but in the meantime, they're all analog for now. And we'll see how it goes. And oh, my track wasn't on. I was like, why isn't the car going? Yeah, I'm going to take this car around. Let me just show you the differences in quality between the Scalextric and the Carrera. Now, it doesn't look like there's that much of a difference, but when you see them up close firsthand next to each other, you just see the difference in detail of these cars. Now, again, these are not meant to actually be competing with these cars. These are the lower level cars, although as you'll see in a minute, they run just fine. But they're not meant to, it would be unfair to compare them to that car, even though that car was not very much more expensive when it was first released, as were all these. But you could see the level of detail in the difference in all these cars. When they're next to the car tomorrow, you could tell it's just not the same quality. And in that, you could see why I'm reluctant to race the Carrera stock cars. And that's why I'm going with this series. But when you look at some of these, now this car is just about the same size as the car tomorrow. But when you get to these, it's a little bit smaller. And especially when you take the Chevrolet Monte Carlo, it kind of, this one doesn't stand, this stands up pretty well to it. This stands up pretty well to it, actually. They're both nice looking, they're both around the same size, but it's when you get to these monsters back here that they just dwarf, especially the Ford Thunderbird. It's just dwarfed by that. And you could see the difference, and you can see the difference in the quality of the car and the level of detail that goes into these cars. But for what it is, that's an unfair comparison. I shouldn't do that, but that is what it is in a nutshell. And so I'm going to take this around and show you what it's like to do some laps on this. Now, I'll do my best. Haha, wrong side. Let me get the other controller. There we go. And scoot these guys back so there's room to drift in the corner a little bit. All right, so let's take this car around and you can see how these cars run. Oh, racing and being on your cell phone is not a good mix, as you could see, especially when you get notifications popping up on your phone right on your view screen. So, but as you see here, it's a beautiful run. Whoa, I missed that on camera. I'm gonna stay back here. Okay, so that's a good indication of how good I could drive holding a cell phone in my hand, but it's also a good indication of how well these cars run. And putting digital chips in there will make, I believe, a fantastic digital NASCAR race. And they are well worth it, in my opinion. For less than $30 US to get cars like that, Bill Elliott, well, you can just call him Bill Elliott. Harry Gant, not sure if anybody can tell me what that resembles, the Optimum car there. I'm going to call that Mark Martin. I don't know why Lake Speed's coming to mind, but I know who that is. And I'm going to call this one Darrell Waltrip, just for the sake of what it kind of looks like. So thank you for watching, and check these cars out. Check these cars out. I was looking for them on Amazon Prime Day, but they're not involved in the sale. So, but they're still, at the time of this recording, they're still a great price, and they can wipe out. They could take a licking. I'm not sure if these are called their, what do they call their high resistance, or they have a series that it's called High Impact series or something like that. Not sure if that's part of this, but these do take a licking, and they keep on ticking very well. Very, very smooth driving cars, and very enjoyable, and I am looking forward to having a NASCAR series with them and driving correctly. So thank you so much for watching, and take care.